At 7 p.m.
Greetings, greetings. I have even more technology tonight. Those people who might want to see us will be able to find us on our webcast. We're at lansingonlinenews.com, and we're broadcasting live on the web at the same time that we're here on the radio. And I'm busy doing video because I'm doing a video of Roman Collins, who is our first guest. And we're going to go straight into our talk with Roman because he might have to leave pretty quickly. He has big things brewing down at the City Council meeting tonight. The Lansing City Council has its meeting here on Monday nights. And what's happening tonight, Roman, that you've been very involved in?
Well, first of all, on Thursday I found out about what was happening in Russia, the human rights abuses that are going on there, and I found out that the Lansing City Council has a sister city status with St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg is where some of the homophobic laws that are on the national level in Russia have now passed. Um, St. Petersburg is a city where those originate. And so the Lansing City Council having a sister city status is something that we can definitely take an opportunity of because the activists in St. Petersburg who are being abused and essentially having their human rights thrown in the trash are calling for us to call for severing ties with St. Petersburg. They've done this. They've called for the international community to do this, and if Lansing uh, does end up severing ties, will be the first city to do so. So tonight, the Lansing City Council is voting on a resolution that gives the sister city board here in Lansing the directive to end the sister city relationship if they do not change their laws within 90 days.
And what is the likelihood they would change their laws within 90 days?
I'm gonna say zero.
That's what I'm thinking, yes. We've seen in the new Putin regime there were already anti-LGBT laws on the books, but what has he done to make it even worse?
Well, I mean, first of all, he signed it, but other than that, I mean,
What is the new law that put into place that hadn't been there before?
there are a few of them. Some of them, the main two that I'm focused on are basically the one that says that bans homosexual propaganda, so-called. So basically, you have no right to protest and advocate for LGBT rights because basically it says, oh, well, we can't have children exposed to this. Of course, the knee-jerk reaction of homophobes is to attach pedophilia to being
Right.
gay, which is horrible.
And also,
So,
there's the idea that somehow, if you let kids know that there is such a thing as being gay, then they will turn gay.
right,
Yes, that you can gayify them if you just let them know that that goes on, that it is. That's the big fear, is that you will take my child, right? And
mm,
just by letting them know that this option might exist, all of a sudden they will totally change their orientation, which is equally nonsensical, but that's kind
right,
of the logic behind it.
right. And then there's another law that basically says that if you're either gay or open or basically in favor of gay rights
An
and a
ally.
tourist,
Yeah. Yeah.
you will be, first of all, you'll be fined. You'll be detained for up to 14 days in a Russian prison, and then you'll be deported.
Which is
So
going
it
to make
cuts a major proportion of their visitors, probably.
apparently not counting on tourism. I
No.
mean, because it's not just the LGBT community, it's their allies. I think they are defining being an ally fairly loosely. It doesn't mean that you're getting up there with a rainbow flag. It means that if you're in support of those rights, and openly so, you're in real trouble, which is causing quite a bit of consternation about the upcoming Olympics as well.
Yeah, and then there's also an international movement to boycott the Olympics, which I wholeheartedly support. I mean, there are multiple movements, not just the Sever Ties with St. Petersburg movement. There's also, of course, the boycott the Olympics. There's also some campaigns to get some of the sponsors to pull their funding. So there, of course, there are a lot of ways.
And no more Russian vodka in Manhattan
Right,
bars.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly, and then they've done that
Now that
in
would be a
Vancouver as
big
well.
idea.
That may, yeah. Now, see, I would support the VOD. Here's where you and I, this just this is among people on the same side of the issue having a respectful disagreement about tactics. I'm not persuaded that pulling out of the Olympics is a good idea or severing the sister city relationship is a good idea. I'm very interested in maintaining an opportunity to harass them on this because nothing would please me more than seeing Johnny Weir competing in the ice skating and making a big protest statement and seeing whether the Russian government has the courage to go ahead and arrest him for that. And if they don't, then it means that that would be, I think, one heck of a statement. I would love to see that. I just think that would be a remarkable
You're talking
opportunity.
about an Olympian himself.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And he's openly gay. I mean, as many of the figure skaters are, male figure skaters are openly gay, and this would be a
Swimmers.
real opportunity, I think, to put that
There's
whole.
kind of reminds me of Mexico City.
Yes, the two young men that held up their fists in
Three.
Black Power.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There were three of them.
Yeah, three of them.
Yeah. I mean, see, there are opportunities like that for that
thing is
kind of
worldwide
protest.
still.
I think that in terms of being a civilian, I would boycott the Olympics. I don't think an Olympian is going to do the same thing, so there are different approaches.
Right.
I mean, I think that that's definitely awesome, and I hope he does make a show out of it. I don't know if he will, but
But you're suggesting that you'd prefer to see the Olympics pulled altogether, American
Absolutely.
participation.
I would as a citizen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be encouraging people to celebrate having the Olympics in a country that essentially derides people for being homosexual.
See, one
mean,
of the real questions I have, and one of the reasons I want to, I think when there's an economic impact, if a boycott, like being able to boycott the vodka, can really hit them in the pocketbook, that's a good symbolic gesture because there's not much conversation occurring when somebody's selling you a shot of vodka. There's no real opportunity to engage them. What I like about the idea of maintaining a dialogue with sister cities is the possibility that maybe you could have some influence or at least provide some opportunities for support. I do. Have you seen the new YouTubes online that show the teenagers over there being so severely abused by right-wing fascists in Russia? I mean, it's really a brutal situation now.
I'm not exactly sure what. Yeah, I've seen the protests, and I've seen news about the teenagers being basically lured into thinking that they're going to a date, for example.
Yes.
And end up being tortured by
Yeah.
neo-Nazis and skinheads.
Yeah.
And so I haven't seen video of that, and I'm not sure I want to. It sounds very gruesome.
I've watched just a couple seconds. I can't tolerate it either. But it's out there now on YouTube and it's circulating and going viral, so it's really letting people know how bad it is. And I mean, clearly we've had similar problems here, and we still have situations where it's not safe to be openly gay. The idea that somehow because we've been able to overcome Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and we now have same-sex marriage in many places, and DOMA's been overturned, that doesn't mean that it's safe to be openly gay in some communities.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Earlier you mentioned the point of keeping an open dialogue, and you can't really have a dialogue with a country that bans the very idea of even talking about being LGBT in that country. Not only that, if we sent ambassadors from Lansing over there, they would be deported right away. And so there's really not any room at all for us to have a dialogue. So that has already been crossed.
Well, when was the last time we had visitors go from here to there? Has it been a while?
It's been 6 years since there's been any contact on the Sister City program. And to my mind, one of the challenges with that kind of approach is that, I mean, if I were living in another country, I would want to do something to protest America's drone policy. And I would say, let's sever all ties. If you do that, then you're not having I mean, so we're just different on the strategies and tactics.
Right, and so that's where the second point that I have comes in, is that these laws originated in St. Petersburg. It's not like the laws that we have on the national level, like DOMA, for example, originated in Lansing. I mean, Lansing has a very pro-LGBT record. And so the idea that we would somehow advance that kind of legislation on a national level, it doesn't.
Lansing may have a pro-LGBT record, but we sure have DOMA. So I mean, Michigan doesn't have the best track record in that regard either.
What's is the likelihood very strong that the council's going to vote to separate?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, tonight the resolution, in my mind, there's no reason why it wouldn't be passed. And I support the resolution. I think that we should sever ties right away. But I support the resolution because it actually does call for severing ties if they don't talk to us. And so within the resolution itself, there is some room for trying to have that discussion before we sever ties. And I'm not against that. Of course, I want dialogue, but at this point, I don't think it's possible. That's where I stand on that.
Maybe we could find a way to harass the daughters of billionaire Russians who are buying up the world's art collections.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
They're all like 26, they have billions of dollars to spend on art.
Well,
Don't sell it to them.
so then do we do Uganda, or it's Ghana? Is it Ghana or Uganda that we have? It's Ghana, isn't it?
Ghana.
Yeah. We used to have a sister city relationship with Ghana, which also has a pretty bad track record on this.
Well, part of this situation is that it lays out the framework to do exactly that. I mean, I don't think that we should be. I think that we should be sister cities with cities that we actually aspire to be, like you know, larger cities.
So we'd be
around the
limited
world,
to
like,
Scandinavia. I mean, seriously, that's about where we'd be limited to.
and you know, Canada. And stuff.
Canada.
Those Canadians are nice. Come on.
Yeah, they
Toronto.
got Toronto would be okay.
Right.
Okay, Vancouver, we might go with Vancouver.
Mhm.
There's a few places though, I don't know, over there in Saskatchewan and Calgary where I'm not so sure you'd find a welcome home. But there are issues beyond that. My argument with the drones was that there are multiple issues related with any government, and it
Human
doesn't
rights,
have
yeah.
to be. There's human rights issues. There are all kinds of problems. You know, killing people with drones is pretty basic human rights. Where killing
Right.
people from the sky is a bad idea in my book. So I don't think there's any country on the face of the planet that is pure on all of the issues that I would care about. So I think the real question for me has always been: so how do we make it better then? I mean, do we think that Russia will change if the city of Lansing, or is this just if we had cities all across the country do this? Are they sister cities elsewhere across the country?
Yeah, I mean there are tons of. I mean it's an international thing, so there are tons of cities in the U.S. that have sister city relationships with other cities in Russia.
Okay.
There's some in Michigan, including Flint and Kalamazoo. I'm not entirely sure which cities they're sister cities with, but I mean there are other cities in Michigan as well. And so after this happens, after we sever ties in Lansing, I think that's where this goes. I think that we start to get other cities in Michigan to call for it. And the very fact that we're making the movement to do this brings the issue to light. And that's why it actually does have an impact, I think, on
Raising awareness, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like if you've seen on our Facebook page, we've been also advancing things like the boycotting the Olympics, boycotting the vodka that comes from Russia, boycotting. There's one to boycott Kaspersky. It's a spyware program, but anyway.
Oh.
Right.
I was thinking of Gary Kasparek, the chess player, and I thought he was pretty much retired, but I guess we wouldn't go to his chess matches
No one is
either.
safe. No one is safe. That's the point.
Well, then, so the vote will be tonight. Do you have any idea, or do you have any vocal opposition? Or I know the mayor has said he sort of has my position, which is maintain a dialogue, but he's still pro-LGBT rights.
Mm-hmm.
I think my only concern is that sometimes these are used as litmus tests to see whether you're really on the side of certain communities. And I think you can have a principled idea that, well, you don't want to get into every kind of tit-for-tat kind of boycott necessarily, that maintaining a dialogue. I'm real concerned that the next Olympics may not come off. And I think the Olympics, if nothing else, highlight certain issues. Again, I would love to see a large LGBT contingent go over there of spectators wearing, rainbow shirts and so forth, and see, because I think they would very quickly outstrip the capacity of the country to deal with them. And it might be very liberating.
I think that's a good idea. I would like to see Russia try to arrest just some spectators of the Olympics for wearing rainbows of all things.
Right.
I mean, isn't another thing is the logo to the Olympics with rings in it. Isn't that very rainbow?
It does look.
Yeah, it is.
Good
It can
point.
be.
Good
It
point.
can be, yeah.
You could easily adapt that logo into something that would be very dramatic, wouldn't it? That'd be wonderful to see.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Putting
really
pressure on the Olympics is probably the biggest economic impact you can have.
And the sports media, much to their shame, I think, has come out and said that unless some kind of retribution involves an athlete, they will not be covering that issue. that they're going to ignore that in their sports coverage. And boy, I think that is a huge mistake for the American media, because to me that's another opportunity for the media to bring attention to this issue and educate people. I suspect there'll be enough pressure that if the Olympics go forward, that they'll have to change that policy.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that just raises the importance of having somewhat symbolic things like severing the sister city statuses, is that it raises the issue so that the national media has to pay attention.
Yeah. This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Roman Collins, and I know he has to leave soon, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, so how did you spend your summer vacation, Roman? I saw you on Facebook. I saw you before you left.
Dancing with redwoods.
Yes, yeah. Tell us what you were up to.
Well, I mean, everything imaginable on the West Coast. Not really, but I mean, quite a lot of things. I saw, some great stuff. I mean,
you were out there on an internship with Move to Amend,
right?
Where you've
right.
done a yeoman's job over the years here, really mobilizing support for the idea that corporations should not be treated as people, and that's would produce a constitutional amendment to that end.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of things did you do for them out there, and what did you learn? And
well, I mean, the office interns do, everything that is required for the organization to work. So answering the phone, answering emails. One of the things that's unique about Move to Amend is that we actually try to answer every email that we get.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's a heck of a commitment.
Right, and so we have to have people who are going to do that task, and that's the important task of one of the most important tasks of what interns do there. And then, I coordinated a tour for one of our spokespeople, Ashley Sanders, in Arizona, and so that went pretty well. And I wrote an op-ed for them. I mean, I did quite a lot of communications and field organizing work, supporting our local groups, trying to basically troubleshoot whenever they have problems.
A lot more than fetching coffee.
Right. No, there was absolutely no fetching coffee.
Good.
So
People fetch their own, huh?
Exactly.
And tell me, in that situation, what does that mean in terms of are you continuing your work with Move to Amend back here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this year, in September, we're having a barnstorming tour, so David Cobb is going to be touring around the state again, so keep your eyes open for that. That tour is being coordinated by me. And at the end of the tour, we're going to call a statewide meeting, and we're going to try to coordinate more on the statewide level. We're hoping to get many new groups started out of this tour, and so definitely keep in tune.
And I saw some pictures of you with celebrities.
Yeah. Let's see, Adam Savage was probably one of the most celebrity-like people I met. I did meet a lot of people who are, famous among progressives. The second day I was there, I met, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks.
Yes, that was the one. Oh, God.
And
one of my heroes.
Never would I have imagined going, just out of, doing the work that I'm doing, ever actually meeting Cenk in person.
Oh, yeah.
It was odd for me, because here I am with my idol, basically, just hanging out, and what was really weird is that Cenk is no different in person than he is on his show.
That doesn't surprise me. He seems as authentic as anybody could be. I mean,
yeah.
So why are you back here? Whoops, I shouldn't ask.
Well, I mean, there's quite a lot of work to do here, and although I had an awesome time in California, and I already miss it. I mean, San Francisco was great. The West Coast in general was great. I went to Portland, Eureka, San Francisco, San Jose. I didn't actually go down to Southern California, but I mean, it's a great place. But there's something about the Lansing area specifically. Like when I got back, I was like home.
See, it does get in your blood, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you can drive now. So see everybody out there who now that makes Roman really dangerous because now he can get where he needs to go. He doesn't always have to rely on people being able to give him a lift to get there anymore.
Right.
And that's going to make him
He'll
even more
double his
powerful.
output.
Absolutely. And it's really a good thing to know that, I mean, when you think back in your own life, by the time you learned how to drive, you had not accomplished as much as Roman already has in changing the dialogue here locally. I do want to thank you for coming in, and I know you've got to hustle and get those votes rustled down there at the city council, but good luck to you, and I hope you come back and give us the news.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Thank you
Great
very
to
much.
see you back.
Pleasure to be on.
Nice to see
Great.
you.
This is WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. This is LCC Radio. Bill, I wanted to check with you and see if there are any announcements
There are a
about
few.
things coming up.
I think I'm not going to drink any Russian vodka, because I don't know what Russian vodka is.
And don't drink any cheap tea because the tea bags are loaded with fluoride. Just a little
Would
oddity
that help
I'm
my
passing.
teeth? I wouldn't have any cavities?
I don't know.
Or
That might be better than what I currently have going.
would I
Yes,
be
indeed.
fluoridated? Okay, well, one of the events coming up is Steve Harris, the author of Detroit Rock City, is going to be at Schuler's at the town center, July 31st at 6:30.
Steve Miller.
Did I say? What did I say?
You said Steve Harris. So it would be Steve Miller?
Not Harris. Steve Miller.
Yes.
The punk rocker.
Yes.
The author of a couple true crime books. He's
Part of
written-
the fix.
And he's written a book now called Detroit Rock City,
Yep.
which is a compilation of interviews with some, very high-end rock individuals in Detroit, and it's getting good reviews. And he's going to be. This is his first local event, and he'll be at the town center Schuler's, the 31st, and then on the 30th is an event called Writing Up North, basically. And there's a group of writers from mostly the Upper Peninsula who are touring the state, and they're kicking it off at Schuler's in Okemos at 6:30 tomorrow night, which is July 30th. And I think that'll be fun. It's they're all Yoopers and tell great northern stories. The title of the event is called The Way North. They're making their way north.
I see.
But they will do tons of events. The guy that coordinates it, Ron Ricci, is a professor at Northern Michigan, and I think last year and the year before he had 60 events
Oh my goodness.
for this kind of tour. So
Wow.
it's pretty cool.
Wow.
They're ambitious.
I guess so.
They're very ambitious. And then the final thing is, in conjunction with the Jazz Fest this weekend, the Historical Society of Greater Lansing is going to do a historical tour of about a dozen locations in Old Town, which is not many compared to what's in Old Town, but that's about how many you can do in an hour and a half.
Okay.
Starts at 12:30, Saturday, July 3rd, and you would meet at the Cesar Chavez parking lot, or city lot 59, I believe it is.
The one with the nice mural?
Yes, that is the better way of describing it. It's where the mural is, but it's Clark Hill parking lot, and
By the fish ladder.
by the fish ladder. And the fish ladder is one of the items they're talking about, because the river, they're meeting there specifically because the riverfront is what made Old Town to begin with.
Right,
North Lansing.
right.
People came for power, recreation, the ease of moving goods up and down the river.
Yeah.
So that's where really Old Town started, was right there where that dam is. There's an energy, they generated energy out of there at one time. But I think there hasn't been a real Old Town tour covering both the architecture and the history of some of these buildings. It's just not going to be old history. Some of this will be 70s, which isn't old.
Right.
It's 40 years now, but anyway. And it's going to show sort of the vast changes that have happened over Old Town several times. There's been several reincarnations.
It has reinvented itself over the years,
It
hasn't
has indeed, yeah. And I think this one is one people are happy with. I think we mentioned, and you used the word tipping point at one point, that all of a sudden there's a lot of people on the streets down there. I mean, many more than there ever has been.
We don't have a pedestrian culture in the Midwest,
No.
but you do there.
Yeah, and that's helpful.
Yeah,
it's
it
really
is.
good. People get out of their car and walk around.
Yes.
And yeah, we do not have it like Chicago.
Right.
I was in Chicago last week. People are walking everywhere all the time.
Well, we were talking about that. I mean, well, there is the impression, I think, because of Detroit and because of the economic problems there. And needless to say, Lansing has its economic problems as well. But that doesn't mean that cities don't still have a vibrant culture in certain places. It may not be all over the city. There may be some places that are really suffering. But indeed, there are these wonderful neighborhoods that just have such a great little personality, and they have their own cast of characters.
And
And
restaurants,
yeah,
places that public places that people hang out and listen to music. Chicago is one of those cities.
right.
You can always find something going on somewhere there. A lot of it's free, of course,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of philanthropy. So they build parks. The Maggie Daly Park is going on. And it was
Oh,
donated
interesting.
by the Daly family in honor of Maggie, and it is, it's got to be 6 blocks long and 3 blocks wide,
See, that's
right on
amazing.
the water. That is huge piece of property.
Well, in Detroit, they're down to 50 parks now, and that's from hundreds that they had before, and they literally may be wiping those out at some point. I'm really concerned about what we're seeing happen down there, and I'm afraid that it serves as a blueprint for other cities around the country. And part of what does begin to disturb me is that it's sort of like looking at the map of where the emergency managers go in. Many cities are distressed, but why is it that the blackest cities seem to be the ones where we're more than willing to pull the plug compared to other cities? And that's becoming really a racial undertone in a lot of the conversation about Detroit that I find unpleasant. I think that it's blaming the victim for the poverty that exists in the city, and certainly they've had, challenges with leadership, but I don't know a city that hasn't.
Right.
Let's face it, New York is maybe not going to do so well under a Weiner administration. So it doesn't mean that, that there's all kinds of reasons that cities have problems. But I'm really concerned that a lot of the dialogue about Detroit and some of its economic problems are focusing on things like all those people that got too many entitlements, those rich pensions. Well, Bob King was on MSNBC, the UAW president. He was on MSNBC over the weekend, and he said the average pension for a city worker in Detroit averages between $18,000 to $19,000 a year. And I think that's a fairly modest pension, especially when you consider that Detroit employees were not allowed to get and sign up for Social Security.
Right, absolutely. They can't double dip.
No.
So that is what they have, and I think that needs to be mentioned every time someone says something about pensions. They can't get Social Security.
And that's going to mean that if that goes down to 10 cents on the dollar, who can live on $1,900 a year? And how do you do that to somebody that planned their whole life around the fact that that was a
And how
solemn
does it help the
promise?
city? The
How does
people
it help
are
the
still
city?
living there,
Yeah,
so they're going to be living there with less money?
yeah, all on the street.
There's something wrong with that rationale.
Yeah. I was pleased to see Attorney General Bill
Yeah.
Schuette. I just hope that he
I had
pursues
to read
that.
it twice. I really did. I thought I read it wrong the first time.
Yeah, I think maybe, well, one of the things I worry about is I hope that he pursues it as aggressively as I would.
That's what I was wondering. I think we have to watch on who he assigns to litigate it.
I know. Is he going to take this under his wing, and is he going to do it himself? Is he going to put one of his top litigators on it? How many resources will they be given? How adamant will he be? The Michigan Constitution guarantees that those pensions should be sacrosanct. So it would be a state constitutional issue. So it'll be interesting
And I
to
think
see.
other states have similar measures.
I'm
in the
not sure
Constitution.
how they.
And that's why they're looking at it as possibly a nationwide decision. It could get ugly. Does bankruptcy court trump?
Right. Does federal
Trump and
bankruptcy?
I wonder if that's ever happened.
Yeah, and we saw some worrisome figures come out for the city of Detroit today. I mean, city of Chicago today, where they're not worth what they were last year. They're now using up their rainy day fund. We see that 4 out of every 5 Americans now, a new study done by Pew, shows that 4 out of every 5 Americans will at some point in their life be threatened with poverty. They either will have been on unemployment or they will have been on welfare. Now that's a startling statistic.
It's just their fault, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
So we're seeing this wrenching dislocation take place, and it's really fascinating to
So
watch.
it happens to you or someone you know very well.
Yes.
It's their fault.
Yes. This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. And we are about to be joined. We're going to make a transition to, you were talking about Old Town earlier.
Old Town, yeah.
We're making our transition.
And I wasn't patronizing, I was being honest. There's just a different, in just this last year, there's a different culture down there. You can see it and feel it. And not that it was bad before, but it's over the top now, great.
Well, we are joined by Terry of Message Makers, and we are joined by Holly, and I'm going to butcher your last name, but let me give it a try, because ekwejunor-etchie?
That was perfect.
Whoa!
That was impressive.
Wow.
It's better than I was.
Well,
Wow.
and I have to ask, I mean, just curiosity compels me. What nationality is that?
It's all Nigerian.
Oh, interesting. Okay, because it's nicely phonetic, the
It
way it's
is.
spelled out. And they're here to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Old Town, and specifically this weekend with Jazz Fest. So tell us what's happening.
Well, there's a lot of new things happening in Old Town, and the number one thing is we've got a new street.
A new street?
Yeah, we got a blacktop, the entire Turner Street. So if you want to come out and dance to the music, we've got a great street to do it on now. No potholes.
Oh, you won't fall in one of those big
That's right.
sinkholes like they have down in Florida. I've always they were pretty close.
So that's one of the things new. But we always try to do something unique in Old Town for our festivals, and of course one of the other features that is special is our unique request we make of all the bands to play something that they've never performed before, either a new arrangement, an original song, something they've not done. That so when you go there, when you listen to every band, you're going to hear at least one tune that's special that you're the first to hear from each band. So that's
interesting. Interesting. So they're debuting some number
of some sort, yeah.
So who are some of the big names that we might recognize?
Well, locally you've got Eldon Kelly, phenomenal player. Those Delta Rhythm
My husband
Kings.
raves about him all the time.
Jeff Schaup's going to be there with a lot of different people joining him. Those Delta Rhythm Kings. I think Freddie Cunningham. Oh, I think Freddie's playing with.
Oh, cool.
I don't
Root
remember
Doctor?
who exactly. Root Doctor. No, Root Doctor's not playing.
No.
Those Delta Rhythm Kings. He's playing with Jeff Schaup. David Rosin's Grand Rapids Quartet. We've got Phil Denny on Saturday. Margaret Thomas, great singer. Her husband Reggie Thomas are playing Saturday night. Rodney Whitaker with Terrell Stafford, an incredible trumpeter. He's just off the charts right now. So let's just name a few.
Cool.
Is the overall event bigger this year? Or is it the appearance that just is bigger? Because it looks special.
Every year we try to change it up. Go ahead.
No, it definitely seems bigger. This is my first year with the festivals, but the acts we have are great. We have our Kidsby area, which is growing. The new street is huge, and we're really excited for this year.
To move you a little closer to the
We've been growing our Kidsby, so on Saturday there's all kinds of things to do. The instrument petting zoo.
Yes, I like that.
Okay, so musicians show kids how to play different instruments. We've got new this year is the Broad Art Museum's doing something with us, and as is the Amish Community Music School, so they're out joining us.
What is the Broad doing?
The Broad will be doing a build your own Broad activity out of paper. So kids will get to make their own replica of the building.
I tried that out of aluminum foil before it was built. Seriously, because I was going to take a picture.
Didn't work.
Not good enough, not talented enough. The Scotch tape didn't hold well on the aluminum foil. But yeah, it'd be fun. You could fan everything. Yeah.
I'm excited to see that activity.
We've got, back again, we've got the Metro Marinas doing their water taxi and tours on the river.
Oh.
Which is a ton of fun. But they were filled up last year, completely.
Huh.
So that's only $3 a person.
Yeah, well,
it's a real bargain.
It's a deal.
Where do they take you?
Up and down the river, up as far as up to downtown from Old Town back.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a gorgeous river. And we've in this community we've forgotten our river.
That's one of the things many people have said to me.
San Antonio has a drainage ditch.
it is.
Not much, and
ditch.
they've built a great downtown around it. Thriving, and we've got a real river that's gorgeous to ride.
It is. It's stunning.
Last week I was on the Chicago River, and I was thinking, it's been a while, but 20 years ago, you wouldn't even go on there. The paths that they had, they were so dangerous.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And now it's just filled with people. The rivers matter.
I would love to see a restaurant overlooking the river and be able to sit there at night and look out on the river. It'd be
Boats
gorgeous.
on it.
Yeah.
People,
Terry, at one time, and you probably know this, but when Old Town was North Town, when it first started, there were steamboats that went back and forth between downtown.
No.
Yep, little steamboats.
Wow.
Carrying mostly goods and supplies from one part of the city to the other.
We do need that architectural tour. Yeah, that's going to be really good. Yeah. Is that one of the stories? Are we going to learn?
Yeah, I think Val's going to tell that story because not very many people know that.
I'm really glad you guys are doing the historical tours this weekend. That's a new feature as well. The walking tours of Old Town.
No, Old Town has gone through ups and downs, and you've watched it so long over the years down there. Where is it in its cycle now?
We're pretty high up. There's more to go. We still need some nighttime venues, like more good evening restaurants.
Yeah.
clubs where you can hear some music and all that. But I mean, it's hopping. I mean, when I moved there, it was a ghost town,
Right.
literally a ghost town. And now it's, and then we went through a phase where we started getting more activity and involvement, but the weekends were quiet. Now the weekends are like, sometimes parking's even a challenge,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
See that.
Now, give me the times, because when does Jazz Fest kick off, and when should people be there, and give me all those details.
So at 4 p.m. on Friday, it will kick off, and then from 4 to 6 p.m., we'll be partaking in the first Friday, so it'll be happy hour.
Oh, yeah.
So admission into the beverage tent is free, and then on Saturday, it's 2 to midnight.
2 to midnight
Mhm.
on Saturday in the beverage tent. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we call it the turnaround lounge. And something new we're doing there is we've got a band inside the patio of the north side this year. So we've added that as a different feature, trying to get the music closer to the people that come and they're inside there. So we still have 3 stages, and great acts, and it's a great atmosphere. You're outdoors, great buildings. You can walk along the river, walk into the parks, meet some new friends, see your old friends, and just have a great time and move around and enjoy the place.
Can you give me a rundown of the restaurants that are there now? Because there has been some turnover, and I'm not clear who is and
Yeah.
isn't there anymore.
Portable Feast is back. Sharon's back.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, I
It's
didn't know
great.
that.
It's a great restaurant. Meat's a newer restaurant.
Yeah, that seems
Specializes in barbecue.
fairly straightforward. Vegetarians
It was
need not
mentioned in
apply.
the New York Times article.
Pablo's is Mexican. Serve pizza along the water there. Grand Cafe, it's called. Up the street we have Golden Harvest, the special, unique, the best breakfast place
That's
in the country.
right. That's wonderful. I think of that as the gluten palace. Those of us who are
Yeah.
celiac, I get sick just walking in the door. And needless to say, as a vegetarian, I don't hang out at meat much either.
That's right. Yeah.
Meat is busy.
Yep.
It's hard to get a seat in there.
They've got to expand. They can't. There's not enough room in there for them yet.
Is
Now, is it typical that WKR Back Pass comes down?
Actually, that started last year. We have a great relationship with WKR Backstage Pass. Jazz Fest is now in 83 markets around the country. We
Really?
videotape, not all the bands, but some of the bands each night, with a great production. And we're expanding the production this year. It's going to be in the South Stage, but we've got cameras from all different angles. I think better than Austin City Limits.
I do too.
Great sound.
Yeah.
And literally, we're Jazz Fest and Blues Fest, last year Mosaic as well. We're around the country. I mean, it's really put Old Town Lansing on the map, and we provide great programming. KR, it's a win-win for everybody. KR gets some great programming. They do a great job. We could not afford, ourselves to, shoot, edit, and produce and distribute that. So
Yeah.
it's really pretty cool.
Any webcasting at the same time?
That happens too. Yeah, we've got a social media thing going on. Lori Lonsdorf and Paul Schmidt, kind of handle that and pushing out all kinds of things on social media. We take photographs as we go, and then they're pumped up right away.
Pumped up right away, yeah. Good.
Yeah, it's-
Holly, what will you be doing those 2 days?
I will be floating around the festival.
Not on the river.
Yes, not on the river, just to help wherever is needed. We have a great crew of volunteers, and everyone recruited their own team of volunteers this year, so I'll just kind of help out as needed, and wherever I'm needed, I'll be there.
It's pretty easy to recruit volunteers, isn't it, for Jazz Fest?
Yes and
Is
no.
it?
I mean, it takes so many people. We have more than 150 volunteers to pull this off. So, people have to give some of their time, their valuable time. And some people just want to listen to music. But what I say is, look, you can come, you get a T-shirt, you get a meal, you get to hear great music, and you get to help out the community. So those are all pluses.
So people could still volunteer? There's still slots
yeah,
available?
Yeah.
Oh,
If
good.
they go to jazzlansing.com, there's a sign up there. I know there's still some slots open. It gets easier, once we go to Mosaic and Blues Fest, 'cause we've got our set of.
Well, that's interesting.
We've got some special music for us today. I don't think it's jazz.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Just told you what it is.
That's interesting. Our little Ustream decided, our own webcast decided, we've apparently have some visitors who've decided to play some music while they're watching us. Maybe they're going to let you know what's going to come up on the weekend.
Yeah. But jazzlansing.com is the website that lists all the bands. We have the latest information as well.
Now, how many years has this been going on?
This is our 19th year.
Good grief. Wow.
And another thing we have going on is an old time artist from 20 years ago, now in St. Louis, came back, Rosa Arenas.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Rosa Rama, we call her, but she had a band called Taboo, you probably remember that
Yeah.
band. But she working in St. Louis, she, as a temp secretary, she would scribble these little portraits on these Post-it notes, and she generated a couple thousand of them. So we have a show going on there now called the Yellow Sticky Diary of a Mad Secretary.
Is
We blew up the Post-it notes, so she blew them up, and they're up. It's a great show at the gallery, and that'll be happening during Jazz Fest.
has she thought of a book?
She should.
Oh, she should, very much should. It's pretty clever. It's a very clever
Okay.
idea.
So do you have your T-shirts again this year? Because I
We've got
have,
great T-shirts.
yes, and it's always a wonderful thing to be able to get a few of the leftovers from last year for
Yeah.
bargain prices.
Right.
I'm
There's
sure
probably a few
they're,
left over from last year, but not much. We're doing pretty good about getting those
yeah.
off the shelves and out there.
And now the festival also used to be famous for greening back when Aaron Slater, now Aaron Steele, was here, and I know she's since moved on and she's off in
We still got
Kalamazoo.
recycling going on, not at the level that she was.
She was amazing.
Yeah, a maniac about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Still going green.
Who
So
did the artwork this year for the poster?
I do not know the artist name. Andy from Message Makers put the whole program together, and he got the art, but I don't know the artist.
Okay,
Honestly, don't
because
know.
the posters have been quite collectible too.
That's been one of our goals in the branding of our festivals in Old Town has been to have, consistent on our logos. And so Jazz Fest and Blues Fest were actually initially created by Fran Russell. And then we've
I
always,
didn't know that.
Yeah.
so we say consistent, we change the colors and whatnot, but everything else stays pretty much the same. And then we said we really want to have fine art in our posters, not just a graphic or whatever. And so we struggle actually every year to make sure that we've got really quality art. And I think most of the time we do a pretty good job with that. Stuff that you want to hang on your walls.
What should people know about jazz? Because I think it's an interesting musical genre in the sense that it is they keep saying it's the only American original. I'm not so sure. There's a few, but I'd kind of put blues in that category in some ways. But
Some people say blues is part of jazz, but I
yeah.
have a jazz history. I don't know how much time we have, but I can tell you a little jazz history.
Tell me, because I think a lot of people are really intimidated by jazz, to tell you the truth.
Well, this is not so much directly about the music, but it's how jazz became the American art form. So 1917, roughly, in New Orleans, there was a little area called Storyville.
Yep.
Storyville is where people were playing like, Dixieland, ragtime, jazz, but it was really just, that's where it was happening, not anywhere else in the country, really. And what was happening is the sailors were getting off the ship there. The admiral had a problem. The sailors would get off the ship and go to Storyville, wine, women, jazz. And they weren't getting back to the ship when they were supposed to. So he went to the Secretary of the Navy, Joseph Daniels, and put out his complaint. The Secretary of the Navy went to President Wilson, who put out directive edict, I don't know what, but basically it eliminated shore leave.
Oh,
So the
not a
sailors,
popular move.
the sailors couldn't go to Storyville. Well, what happened? No work. No work. These guys left and went to Kansas City, Detroit, New York, San Francisco. They went. They spread around the country to get work, and that's how jazz, and then its various forms, blues, actually moved throughout this country.
So a bonehead move on the part of the local officials ended up spreading jazz across
So
the country.
positive things can happen.
So maybe that nice downturn from 2008 is a blessing in disguise.
You never know what might happen, but that's your little jazz history lesson for today, Al.
Wow. But there's so many different genres. I mean,
Right.
when I was a
It's
big
evolved.
Miles Davis fan. When I got married the first time, and I believe in marry often, like voting in Chicago. The only thing I wanted for wedding gifts were Miles Davis albums, because I was a big Miles Davis fan. But if you're a fan of Dixieland, you might not be a fan of Miles Davis.
Right.
So what are people going to hear over these few,
Well, we
2
really
days?
do our best to get a variety of jazz styles reflected there. So you're going to hear some straight ahead jazz, you'll hear some fusion, you'll hear some, I don't know, Elton Kelly's just out there. He did some really wild
Yeah.
stuff. So, I can't really
Tell us a
relate
little
on
bit
him.
about him. My husband, Drew Howard, the area musician, he comes home all the time. Every time he sees Eldon working at Elderly, he said, I just learned so much from him, everything that he does.
He's a master at whatever he does, and he experiments. When he and Bobby Bringy play, Bobby plays the tabla, and they have a unique sound there. But
When's he on the roster?
he's 4 to 6. He's opening up. Eldon opens up.
Okay.
So come out, happy hour, you get into the beverage tent free, which is a little bonus. But he mixes, American roots with his Hindustani, Turkish music. I mean, he blends it all together and does it well. You'll hear, of course, we got Phil Denny and his sax, and some people know of him in this town. And then a little more on the bluesy side would be those Delta Rhythm Kings.
Right.
So we've got that.
Do you have the cerebral Dave Brubeck kind of, no? Bill Evans quartet type stuff?
Yeah.
That's where
A
they
little bit,
started
you
to
know.
lose me, because all of a sudden it became more mathematical than musical.
Take Five's a pretty good tune.
Oh yeah, that was the
It was
last
a
of the musical.
Georgian folk tune done in like, I don't know,
5/4 time.
9/16 time. I don't know what it was.
I don't know how to count that
It
time
was,
at all.
So yeah, we just got a variety of musicians out there and doing some fun things. And
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We are talking with Holly, and I'm not going to test my luck and go for it a second time. We're talking with Terry, who is eponymously named. You just multiply it, Terry, that's easy to remember. And we're talking about
And what's your middle initial?
N.
TNT.
I
You
know.
should have been a jazz musician.
I just
Or
thought,
a
how did,
blues.
humor.
but why did they resist and not make it Terry? I mean, did you ever
I
ask
don't
them?
know.
No?
I found out that actually when I was growing up, actually when I was born, my parents lived on Terry Street.
Was that the reason?
I don't think so. That could be
Oh.
the factor, the,
Ah.
the closing factor or whatever. I don't know.
Well,
It's
I think
crazy.
names are magic anyhow. As somebody who would, my name Bonnie Bucqueroux is spelled as if I were a Cajun. It's Buqueroux, and I will tell that story, but it was about a little bit more than 25 years ago now, almost 30, that I've had a situation where I discovered I was going to be soon divorced. And I thought rather than look forward to dread the divorce, I would try to find some way to put some sort of happy spin on it. And I knew from someone else that, you can get your maiden name back in a divorce. Basically, you can get a free name change in a divorce. So I thought, this is my chance. I don't like my maiden name, but this is my chance to pick a name I'd really be happy with. And I saw the movie Buckaroo Banzai, and I thought Bonnie Buckaroo would be a dynamite name. So I was telling a friend of mine, I said, he said, so what's this about you? And I said, yeah, I'm going to be Bonnie Buckaroo. He said, you can't do this. He said, this is the worst idea I've ever heard of. He said, you're barely employable now. You'll be absolutely out on the street if you. He said, at least put a French spelling on it. So we sat there with a napkin in Washington, D.C. He was an illustrations editor for the Geographic. And over a cup of coffee in the afternoon, we came up with the French spelling, Bucqueure, and I've been a buckaroo ever since. And the irony is I marry a guy who now plays pedal steel guitar, and he turns out his family name was changed. He started out as a Hoar, Hoar. Now, you don't want to grow up with that name.
Right.
That gets you beaten up. So you know what they did? They added a W and a D and made it Howard.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, who knew, right? So I said to him, well, this is a fine, become a buckaroo. You play the pedal. So he won't go for it. But names are magic, see?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah, Terry. I've always thought that's very clever. I thought your parents were quite imaginative.
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably at the time, with growing up, there were times you didn't really care for Terry.
It was just, you just the way it's always been. So
Yeah.
but people would get confused or think they made a mistake. Particularly on the phone, it's like,
Are you stuttering?
all those things
Yeah.
you name, they're the jokes, but yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of what's happening down there with message makers, we've been through the big slump where advertising and all of these other enterprises.
We didn't feel it.
You didn't feel it.
We had have a good client base.
Wow.
Maybe things could have gotten better, but we've been pretty steady and strong. We expanded our facilities. We're producing tons of videos, events and training programs. We've got a great team. I think that's partly it. We've got a good team of message makers and good client base. We were in Japan and China this year producing 3D videos. We stayed at the kind of cutting edge.
Oh, how is that?
It's so much fun.
What kind of cameras are you using for that?
We have a 3D video camera that we bought for that, just that purpose. And
that's coming.
We were shooting foundries, the new technologies in foundries in
Yeah.
places. And put that.
That'd be gorgeous too, I bet.
So,
Terry, one of the things that maybe it's even in your propaganda here for the Jazz Fest I read, but Old Town is now calling itself one of the highest concentrations of creative people in East.
it's actually, I think what I've heard is that it has the highest per capita of creative services businesses in Michigan. So we have that.
Is that right?
We just, when we started out there, I was there on Turner Street.
Right.
But more and more people started to come and open up shop there, and now we just have a high concentration of graphics and creative firms, video, and so forth. So that's kind of cool.
You've stayed abreast with the digital revolution, which has really made a difference.
Yep.
And one of the things I did over last week, which kind of fits with a project that I know that you're working on that I think we can probably say a little bit about, was I went out to the airport last week and met with Ray Holman of the UAW because
Oh, yeah.
the Cadillac Car of the Year is out there at the airport now, trying to remind people that General Motors has been so much a part of the whole culture here, economically, but not even more than economically. It's been part of the whole car culture and really the sort of the center of all this, and that we need to remind people about how, he gave a very poignant talk about how, well, now that Detroit is having the difficulties that it is, we need to be reminded that it was a public and private and union partnership that has made this industry what it is.
It's we've had this economy has been based on the university, the state government, and automotive, and it's been that way for a long time. That's why we've been stable in Lansing, and you're correct. It's made a huge difference to the economy, and it's a good thing. And you're right. We should be reminded of
The
that.
first auto bodies for Rio or maybe Olds were built in North Lansing.
Oh, were they really?
Like wooden.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there were auto plants right on Turner. There was
Yeah.
Turner was the company that was on Turner Street. The But it's a really fascinating story. We were here when this was going on in Lansing, but it was precarious, and the effort that went into getting GM, who could have gone anywhere they wanted in the world, to choose to build two new plants, partly on the grounds of an old 100-year-old plant that was clearly defunct.
Right.
Was quite an achievement, and it was partly because of the labor management relations and how great the quality of the workforce was in Lansing and still is. Those are big things and really important things, and that's what partly was part of the story of persuading GM to stay here. Much more to the story, of course.
And you're going to be telling that story, is that right?
Yeah, you're going to hear a lot about this soon. We're working on a documentary about that, and I think very soon there's going to be a lot of interesting news about it.
I'm jumping the gun a little bit. You don't want to say too much?
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of people know about it, and
Yeah, we're working on a television documentary of that story, right? David Hollister is now on our board, and Ray Tadgerson. There's a committee.
Bill is
Bill
on.
and others. Bill and
and
others
it's an interesting
are.
story.
It's
It happened
fascinating.
nowhere else in the world,
Right.
Yeah.
and it took us probably too long to tell the story because some of the people are lost already.
Yeah, but we've been interviewing people from automotive, from union, former Governor Engler, Stabenow, Burl from City Pauls, getting media perspective and different perspective. We're trying to paint a picture of what happened and a clear picture, because it's an incredible model of how when people come together and work together, how they can make the community better.
And there is some drama,
And
in
that's-
it, which is we'll keep quiet. But there was a lot of drama in this.
Yeah.
I
Whether
think
it
we
was
know the
going
end of the
through
story,
Vito-
Bill. I hate to tell you this.
No, but the
still a
passage there
fascinating
was
story.
pretty scary.
But it's about the message that we got to keep attuned to all this, because things can always change. But that's go back to Old Town. That's what we did there. When we started doing things in Old Town, I got together with Susan Christensen and we ran these community what do I call them? Creative forums. They were design charrettes, and we got together people from the neighborhood, from MSU Urban Planning, from U of M, the American Institute of Architects, and we just held these open conversations about how can we make this a better place. And we drew pictures. We didn't just talk. We kept notes, and we said, because there are always people that would complain and talk about what happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago. We said, you know what? Let's just set that aside. You want to come to this conversation? Let's move forward. Put that in the parking lot, but we're not going to do that. We're going to be positive. And that's really what was helped catalyze and get what happened in Old Town to happen, because we approached City Council in a positive way, and the mayor then was like, instead of coming and shouting and screaming at them, we actually had something to offer. We were doing things by ourselves already. We were kind of ahead of the game. When the National Main Street came in, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, they looked at our plan, our creative vision for an Old Town, as we would call it at the time, and they said, well, you guys are doing festivals, you're doing all these things that we are part of our Main Street model. And they were looking for 6 communities in the U.S. to pilot their urban plan with, and we were one of them picked, and we were kind of already ahead of the game, and they saw that and supported us, so that gave us another boost. But it's that coming together and trying to bring people together to allow different voices to be heard, still stay focused. We have some people, a couple of us were like artists, we just sort of stayed on it and drove it, but uh, keep your notes and keep positive and get the message out.
Wasn't it IKEA that honored you too with
That many years later, that was actually about 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
but that was a, uh, like vote on the internet
Right.
for your community.
Those are hard to win too.
Yeah,
And
because you have to
gotta
mobilize
cheat.
we
through
just
social
put the
media.
word out, and like I think 10 shops in Old Town got $1,000 or $5,000 each. I think it was.
Yeah,
It
that was a
5,000
nice.
each, to revamp their place. So.
Terry, just recently we were moving a file cabinet for the Greater Lansing Historical Society, and this envelope fell out. We weren't quite sure what drawer it came out of because we haven't looked yet. There was probably 40 photographs taken of Old Town. These are professional photographs. They were from about 1972. Because the guy that was with me looked at the car and goes, "That's a
Love to see
72."
'em.
And in just that period of time, it's pretty dramatic. It's
I'll bet.
It's just amazing.
Well, I have some photos. I have to dig through. I have a lot of old photos of like the building that Mike is in now is like now. I remember Emil Whitaker came to us from the city and said, "Would you, our nonprofit, take over the space?" And oh my God, because we had to raise almost $500,000 to do it. And we just recently got full ownership. We bank loans and initiative funds and whatnot. So there's 3 moderate to low income housing, great apartments upstairs. We have the Arts Council downstairs on one side, Gallery 1212 on the other, and then our Micah Gallery is in the center, and our headquarters from Micah.
Well, we were thinking of taking those photos maybe and doing a gallery show of them, blowing them up and showing them then and now, because it's within people's lifetime. They can recall. It's not 1800.
Well, let's do
I
it.
moved here
Let's
in
do it.
'70, and I know what it looked like when I first went down there, and it looks not.
Well, I remodeled, my building, the old Mustang Bar building. My building at one time was called the State Tavern, beer and lunches, and then it was also the Victory Tavern. I just saw photographs the other day. I think Andy has that one. So it's been.
I think it would be fun to do this because people are looking at these buildings. They don't really have a clue what was there, and you tend to go back to the oldest use.
Yes. Yeah.
There's some cool things.
Crabby as I am, though, there is that route of North Grand River on the way up to Old Town that when I went there earlier this year, just before the general store was opening, which I think is such a wonderful addition to the community, the city really needs to provide some help to that stretch getting to Old Town. So that's as attractive as Old Town itself, I mean, they're...
It's a mix, we've most things we've done by ourselves.
Yes, you have.
We have had help at times from the city, and there were some programs for a while. I think right now there's some facade development programs and that, but generally, since we started, there's been tens of millions of just private investment put in there, and the city definitely puts a good chunk of support in there.
And the one thing that people forget is the importance of Joel Ferguson.
Yep,
He came in because he never talks about it. He's just there.
He renovated that one building and the old Estes building. But I remember I got I think it was Tom Gallion from CVB. I remember I gave him his first tour of Old Town, and then CVB moved there, which was part of the Joel deal. But now you made me think about what it was like when I moved there, which was a lot of the buildings were covered with like that 1960s aluminum facade stuff.
Yes.
There's some gorgeous storefronts were covered up from the Essex building to all along Grand River near Washington. I mean, it's pretty ugly. And, so people bought buildings and stripped that stuff off, and we refurbished the buildings without any, we had design guidelines, but no mandated code to do it. But, people saw that was a good use of it. So.
It's a wonderful neighborhood, really a great community.
People live there,
yes,
which is nice. Holly, can you give us a pitch on why I should go to Jazz Fest this weekend? I want to hear your best pitch.
Why you should go to Jazz Fest? Well, I think that the biggest reason to go to Jazz Fest is to see the community coming together, and that's what I am most excited to see. This is my first year with the festivals, and I just think it's really kind of magical when you can get people from all different walks of life in one area together, sharing an artistic experience.
It's one of the most integrated events in the city.
Most diverse.
I'm not sure I'm supposed to say that, but it is.
It's most diverse in every way.
It really is.
Every way.
That's good to know.
Yep.
No, and I'm just hoping for the weather. What do we know? What's the latest on the
today,
weather?
It's looking great.
Oh, is it really?
Great. Yesterday it wasn't. Today it's looking great. So.
What are they telling you? No rain?
No rain. It's sunny with some clouds right now. What I've heard this afternoon. So I think it may not change.
Oh, good.
And good temperature, like warm during the day, a little cooler at night, but really a great summer weekend. So our fingers are crossed for that.
Because there's been some times that it's actually been so hot. You know, we
Yeah.
talk about summer, we
Too
go, that's
hot or
great.
rainy. That's
Yeah.
that's the what you get
The
with an
nature
outdoor
of
event.
outdoor festivals. I want to thank everybody. This is WLNZ Radio, LCC Radio, at 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We've been talking with Terry and with Holly about the upcoming Jazz Fest in Old Town. Please join us again next Monday night. See you then. Thank you.